After months of speculation, the 2025 touring car grid is set. Sam and I take you through all the news.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We are at the end of March and pretty much. And everything is sort of all settled now, which I'm quite amazed by. Russ, how are you?
Yeah, I've been very busy this week gone by. It seems every day there's been an announcement of sorts, whether that be a livery reveal or a driver revealed or a driver not on the grid. But we've seen some real big shocks, I think, in this off-season. A lot of stuff I didn't see coming. We're going to get into that very shortly. But I think, given that if you go back a couple of months, people were doom-mongering, head in hands, the touring car's dead, the grid's going to be rubbish, it's too small, no drivers are good on here.
It felt like nothing happened in January. But
that's January in January, isn't it?
It now feels like we're prepared earlier than we would be normally. For the last couple of years, I seem to think we've been waiting for driver updates, even all the way up until media day. And we're all set now, to go. Yeah,
and as I say, there has been a fair few shocks along the way, which has made for an interesting off-season. It's good to have things set. So there's been a lot of news throughout March. Obviously, we've covered everything in January and February up to this point. So if you think you missed anything out, it's likely it's covered in that other podcast. You need to go back and listen.
Yep.
We will do a full grid preview in due course. It won't be on this pod because
there's a lot to announce.
there's more news here at the minute. There probably is on the BBC website. So there's so much to get through. How are you? Have you asked me? Are you all right?
Yes, not too bad.
There's no time for you to dither.
Pace is gradually building for this season now, and being ready so early, it gives us a lot of time now to concentrate on what the teams are going to be doing. They're already out there testing. We've seen cars at Brands, cars at Snetterton, and I'm sure there are other little private tests going on along the lines as well, just to go with all the news that we've got to give you.
Absolutely. And of course, we're building up to those two official test dates at Croft and then Media Day at Donington Park in a few weeks' time. Right, should we start at the top of March then? And in news that shook nobody, I've said about some groundbreaking news. This wasn't any groundbreaking news. Josh Cook back at One Motorsport. One Motorsport took a year sabbatical last year. They're back, they're in the Civics, and Josh Cook is their lead driver. Were you shocked? No, obviously not.
Not overly, no. Especially when we heard the news that Moffat would obviously be going across to WSR. There were possible rumours that Cook could have been following him, but with his Autosport interview back in January, it seemed fairly certain that he would be going back to One Motorsport to drive a Civic, where he seemed quite happy as a driver, as much as Cook can be happy anyway.
All I will say is that it's an old car now, relatively speaking. There's not actually many new cars on the grid, actually. Most of the cars now are quite old. Do I think that it's got enough to win a championship? No, but we'll probably cover that more on another podcast. But Cook back at One Motorsport. And then perhaps a few days later, perhaps the biggest shock that, and I definitely didn't see this coming. I mean, I did say to you, could it be this? Almost as a joke, not necessarily a joke, but as a kind of, it's left field. I didn't really believe it when I suggested it, but 3-time touring car champion, Gordon Shedden, back in the sport and at Toyota.
Yeah, it was a bit of an out of nowhere move. I don't think it had been speculated really anywhere on the forums and on the social media pages. To have that just announced out of nowhere is quite a shock, but what a coup that is for Toyota. Yeah. To bring in a man of such experience, although he has been out of the sport for a couple of years.
He has, and obviously not necessarily by choice. Obviously, when Dynamics folded, they'd lost a big sponsor at the time, and it was a bit too late in the day to get somebody else in, and we're not seeing Dynamics back on the grid in their own, out-and-out team since. And of course, budget is a big problem for every single driver. But I thought the days of Gordon Shedden in the touring cars were done. Mind you, I thought that of Rob Huff, and he was here last year. I'm really interested to see how Shedden gets on. He's been out on track already doing some testing in the Toyota. It's going to be really interesting to see just where he is, because obviously you're right, age is not on his side, but he is a 3-time champion. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he settles. Obviously, Butcher was at that team previously, so he might have a little bit of a connection through that. But as we'll get on to, there's no space again for Butcher on the grid this year.
No. We did speak in our last pod about problems over at PMR and the fact that they'd lost their title sponsor and everything seemed to be quite doom and gloom. But that's been sorted.
It has,
back on the grid for next year, or this year coming rather. They've signed a deal with Motor Parts Direct, who I've never heard of. You might have done it being in the trade.
Yes, They're an okay national wide motor part factor, just like you'd find with Euro car parts and something like that.
Okay.
They've come in and they are now the big sponsor on the car.
Yes.
A red and white branding will go along with the black and yellow. We'll share a picture on screen now. But crucially, alongside that, Dobble has managed to get enough sponsorship over the line, and I think probably with the help of the MPD sponsorship, to be able to run what looks like is only going to be a single PMR car this season.
Yeah, obviously, Dobble, his family trade is in motorbikes,
Yes.
so you'd imagine that potentially is some form of customer base there from MPD. But it is good to see PMR saved. It's good to see him back on the grid, and it's good to see Dobble able to go into his third season in the sport. Interesting to see what he can do. All suggestions are the Astra is staying. To be honest, with this sponsorship problem, I don't see that changing.
No, not at
either. We say it every year about it being old, but obviously it keeps getting results, so we'll have to see how Dobble gets on this season.
This almost brings to a head a massive fluctuation that we've seen in PMR over the last 3 seasons, from moving up to being a 3-car team and doing extremely well with Watson, Dobble and Taylor Smith. They did probably just as well last season with Aaron Taylor Smith and Dobble, and now down to a 1-car lineup.
Yeah.
It's a real shame that they've had that sponsorship pulled out, but I'm so glad to see that Dobble's going to have another chance this year, where it looks very sceptical as to whether he was going to be on the grid at all.
Yeah, and he'll be on to watching the Independence Trophy for sure. Another shock announcement that came, again, a bit out of left field, and I just didn't see it happening, is that One Motorsport announced their second driver, put a teaser out. A lot of people thinking, is it Crease? Is it Thompson? Is it Proctor?
Crucially, they'd said it was a previous race winner, which ruled a couple of people out in the first instance. But when this got announced, it was a real almost sideswipe.
Yeah, Stephen Jelly is back on the touring car grid after sitting last year out, or moving to Porsche last year following his departure from WSR. I don't really know what to say about it.
More astonishingly, he's in front-wheel drive.
For the second time in his touring car career.
Yeah, he's only ever done once before, and that was a full Focus, I believe. And he didn't score particularly highly. No. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts. Obviously, that team with him and Cook have a hell of a lot of experience within the touring cars, which is going to help massively. And also the team from previously running the Team Dynamics engines are now moving back to the Toka engine. They had a little bit more success, I'd say, with that engine setup and the car, but we'll see how it develops this season. Really,
I just don't know what it's like. I've gone back to sort of 2016. I don't really know what to expect from the team, from Jelly. Cook will always get a result because Cook is what Cook does.
Cook finishes 6th.
It's what Cook does.
Yeah,
the Jelly. It's hard. It's going to sound harsh. I'm not excited about it.
No,
he's a very solid, capable driver.
We were both quite underwhelmed when the news was released, and we were like, "Oh, is that it?" kind of thing. I'd like to see a team like that have more push and more drive to be able to achieve more. And I don't think that having Jelly come in is the right way to go about it. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I don't want to write it off already. He's a multiple race winner.
He is.
He scores podiums, but yeah, it's just the biggest thing in my mind is it's front wheel drive, and his whole career, whether it be Porsches, GTs, touring cars, has been rear wheel drive, and we've seen drivers struggle to adapt from one to the other
massively.
Yeah,
the jury's out.
The jury's out. The ball is in his court to change opinion, which I'm sure he'll look to do throughout the season. Next up, Rocket, who sponsored Nick Hamilton a few seasons back, and did Jake Hill for a season as well.
Yes. It almost felt like he stole them away, but they have come.
That's never happened. Laser Tools, PKP, Rocket. No.
They have come back to the grid, and they will be sponsoring Unlimited Motorsport this season. The 2-car outfit side of things will tidy that up in a minute. So yeah, it's a big name brand, big name sponsor, and they're going to be a massive part of that livery of the car as well. Yeah,
it's really important because there had been some discussions online about drivers within that team not necessarily having the budget to compete for the whole season as it stood at the time. You'd have thought having this big sponsorship, of course, they have been involved in the Formula Ford series.
Sponsored the whole season last season.
And they're obviously involved in other sports. You've seen sport in the snooker in particular, been quite prevalent there. To get a brand on board like that who can provide big sponsorship to a team that is still fairly new and is obviously bringing through drivers that are rookies. They're not established names, and therefore they don't necessarily have the established sponsorship that other drivers do. It's good to see that for the longevity of the teams and those drivers. So looking forward to seeing what liveries as well, because when they have been in the sport and previously, the livery has absolutely banged. So
it's been really clean.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like when it's finalised. We have seen a mock-up of it, which you put on screen now.
Yep.
But they have been at pains to point out this is not the final version. This is a mock-up of what the car could look like.
I do wonder, obviously, with Max Hall being there, whether they will try and incorporate his signature eyes and mouth at the front, and whether they'll be able to run that with the what we assume to be a black rocket livery.
Moving on then, we've got another rookie. And I'm really quite excited about how the grid's formed up, because we've got quite a few multiple champions on the grid.
Yes.
We've got some really solid midfield, you might call midfield drivers.
Yep.
You've got some drivers that haven't won a championship that probably should, or certainly in the category of capable of doing so.
Yep.
And you've got this really talented pool of rookies that are here as well. And Toyota have completed their 4-car lineup. So as we say, they've got Aaron Taylor-Smith, Pearson, Shedden, as we've discussed. And then if you've been watching the sports series over the last couple of years, a name that has sort of really stood out over that time is James Dorlin. And he's been announced at Toyota as their final piece of their jigsaw, which is really interesting.
Again, a rumour that was not really anywhere. And it's been kept under wraps quite well. And we did speculate, we did wonder who was going to be that fourth driver. But crucially, this is the second season in a row that Toyota have changed all 4 drivers.
Yes.
Which can rock the boat at times, but obviously they weren't particularly happy, or drivers have moved on from last season.
I think it's more the drivers that aren't particularly happy, if I'm honest with you.
It was quite apparent, wasn't it? And consequently, they've done a lot of testing in the off-season to try and improve the car, to make weight-saving changes or gains where they can. So it'll be interesting to see whether they have made that step that we were probably expecting of them last season.
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of background on Dorlin, he came through the Clio Cup, which what used to be certainly a fantastic competition and really good stepping stone for getting drivers into the touring cars. He competed there, getting runner-up in 2018, equaling the record for the most consecutive wins in a single season. He then won the Porsche Sprint Challenge GB Cup 2 years later. He's been part of the McLaren Young Driver program. He's done some stuff in British GTs. He's lifted the Silver AM Cup behind the wheel of a Lamborghini Huracan in GT3. So he's certainly a driver with a lot of weight behind him and a lot of motorsport pedigree behind him. I'll be really interested to see how he gets on in touring cars, because it is, what we always say, it's a sport that is completely different to anything else that you can drive coming through that tin top system. It is so different. Something
that we've mentioned before with Toyota's progressionary rookie application, as best I can describe it, there is actually a link there from previous. So Danny Buxton, who is the head of motorsport at Speedworks, previously recruited the then teenager in 2019 for where he was working at the time. So there is a little bit of a link there, and you can kind of understand why that route has now been carved. It'll be really interesting to see how he performs. And I think the benchmark is going to be against Pearson.
Yeah, you make a great point about the lineup changing, and it's really interesting because it will go one of 2 ways. You've got multiple champion Aaron Taylor-Smith, who's in the form of his life, but can he replicate it at a new team? Ronan Pearson has got a lot to prove after the way things ended with Accelerate, and a rookie who will want to establish himself in the touring cars. Now that can either go to brilliance, because that's got all the ingredients to be great. It's also got all the ingredients to not go so well, hasn't it?
Fall on its face, unfortunately.
Can Shedden still mix it at the top? Can Aaron Taylor-Smith do it away from
in a manufacturer car?
Yeah, where pressure's going to be higher, away from a team where he'll so comfortable. Is Pearson washed? I don't think he is, but people will already be thinking that question after the way it finished. Because after he won that race, Brands Hatch, he was, for multiple reasons, I'm sure, but it all fell apart. And Dorlin, well, is he good enough to be in the touring cars? And so there's going to be targets on their back, but equally, a couple of good starts to the season for all drivers immediately takes all that away. So it'll be interesting to see which way that goes.
Yeah, it definitely will. So moving on to the next piece of news now then, and Nick Hamilton is back in the series.
Again, this is one I didn't really see coming. Nick's always talked about trying to get back to the sport.
Definitely.
Obviously, he's a driver that really has struggled with sponsorship. And despite popular belief on social media forums, Lewis Hamilton does not bankroll his motorsport career.
No.
Nick gets his sponsorship. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure having the family name helps get you into the conversation with sponsors. But it doesn't guarantee the deal gets signed. And Nick works as hard, if not harder than anyone on the grid to get those sponsorships. It's not just because he's Lewis Hamilton's brother. Let's put that to bed straight away, please. That's my heading.
And to further that even more, the community that he supports and that he faces in the area of disability, the amount of hoops that he has to jump through to be able to get onto the grid, to be able to carry out safety procedures and stuff like that and be safe to him and other drivers, it's a credit to him.
Absolutely.
So to see him back on the grid is less of a surprise for me because there were rumours out there.
Yeah.
And to see him back in a Cupra isn't that surprising because that's how previous bits and pieces have been set up for him in the series. But it's interesting to see where the licence has come from. Now, we believe the licence has come from the second PMR car.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
We don't think there are any other licences out there unless he's had special dispensation from TOCA. But we think the grid is now full.
Yeah.
So he's taken that. From the livery reveal with the announcement, it doesn't look like he's got any of the Rocket sponsorship. So he's bankrolled the sponsorship that he's got and that car himself, but he does look like he will be running under the Unlimited Motorsport banner. Although
I will say on that livery reveal, there's lots of space on the car. I think that's the basic colours that are going to be there, and it's a case of what you'll go where. But yeah, it is good to see him back. I'm interested to see what he can do. How do I do this without bad mouthing Team Hard? It'd be interesting how he does when he's not in a 5-6 car team.
Yes,
he's going to be in a team that seems, dare I say, a little bit more well run.
I was going to say the outset of the team on the surface looks very similar to what Team Hard used to do.
Yeah.
However, the execution from last season going into this season, I think, is going to be critical.
Yes.
Because we saw how well that DeLyon was able to do in that car, and he was able to get good performances out of it.
Yes.
So the team on the basics know what they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
It's just whether they can now expand that to running 2 and 3 cars.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we'll have to see how that goes for Nick, but it's good to have him back. And then the final driver announcement, which completes the grid as we understand it. And again, I didn't see this coming out of anywhere because all of the sort of...
the teasing shots, shall we say.
Look, he'd made it very clear he was trying to get a deal over the line. But because we assumed another driver was going to be in his spot, it was hard to see where that would have been. We'll come to those drivers who missed out in a moment. But Michael Crease is back, which is interesting.
From the shot of his name being on the window and stuff like that, I was almost certain it was a Porsche.
Or Ginetta.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was certain it wasn't a touring car.
Yeah. Turns out it is.
Yeah. Crease is going to be filling the final spot at Accelerate Motorsport. He'll be alongside Adam Morgan, Tom Chilton and Tom Ingram in the Hyundai. Didn't see that. I thought if Crease would be back, it would be somewhere like 1 or possibly Unlimited. I didn't, or even maybe restart before Lloyd was announced. I didn't see it being at Accelerate. I kind of find it strange that he's there and Lloyd's at restart. I'd have thought that it'd be the other way round.
Yeah, I can see that.
But there you go. But yeah, Michael Crease is back. It's a really interesting one because he's very well liked. He's a very popular guy, and understandably so. He's obviously very affable. He's very, he brings a lot of goods to the grid.
What I would say is looking at those 4 drivers this season compared to last season at Accelerate, I think they have strengthened.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
And I think that will be really good for the team going forward this season. They've got so many likeable drivers there.
Yes, they have,
that can, on the majority of the time, back up with decent and good performances. So it'll be interesting to see how that team develops, how that team works over this season, and whether having all 4 drivers there that we know can pull a result out will actually help to win them teams championships, manufacturers championships, and the drivers championship.
Do you think it's a bit make or break for Crease though? Do you think that he's
quite possibly?
He's been in PMR.
Yeah,
did okay, but didn't set the world alight.
Yep.
He was at 1, wasn't he?
Yes. Yes, he was.
Whatever iteration was at the time.
Yep.
Again, did okay, didn't set the world alight.
Yep. Been at Team Hard.
Did better in some iterations of Team Hard than others, but Team Hard is it was a way into the sport Was it running at the top of the game? Probably not. I think that's fair to say. He's now going to be in a car that is a multiple race winning car.
It's a championship winning car.
It's a championship winning car. He's got teammates that all take wins on a semi-regular basis.
And have got massive amounts of experience.
Yeah. And
you look at the experience in that team, and I don't think any other team on the grid has got more race starts between them.
You're probably right.
Looking at those drivers.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, Tom Chilton's been here for 90 years. So that helps. But
his hair still looks good.
You are probably right. Keep calm down. But yeah, I want him to do well because I do feel he's not ever quite had a fair shot at the touring cars. But it does feel like this is probably the best shot he's going to get.
Do you know what
the team in the car?
Do you know what I'm excited to find out? We've obviously seen, which we'll get onto. We've seen the Virtue side of the garage and their livery.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see what Morgan and Crease do, whether they're going as a 2-car, same livery, same sort of setup, or whether they're going both completely individual, because all we've seen are white cars, white testing cars for them.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited to see what they're going to throw up.
We mentioned liveries. Let's get into liveries we've known. We'll put pictures on the screen. So quite a few cars have revealed their liveries. Napa have decided to go for, is it black with white stripes or white with black stripes? We're running 2 different liveries this year, which actually I really like. I like this idea. I've said before, I think teams should do this more. Sutton and Camish blue with yellow, and Rowbottom and Osborne are yellow with blue. So they're the predominant colours. I like the design. I know you're not as keen.
Tim Harvey is still going to get confused.
Yes.
I'm just putting that out there now.
Yeah, he'll probably say Rainford's in the car. So, I quite like it. I know you're not as keen on it as I am. I think I personally think it's an upgrade on last year's livery. I do.
I certainly think as a team they've had better liveries.
Yep.
I think the first livery they used when they came into the sport as the main sponsor was just right. I think they've gradually got worse.
I do prefer Sutton and Camish's side of the garage livery to the other, but I also prefer the race suits that are being worn by Osborne and Rowbottom. So I'm a fan of this. I want to see it in the flesh as well, because the livery always looks better or worse as it may turn out in the flesh. I quite like it. I know you're not as keen on it. But yeah, that's the Napa one.
One thing we can both agree on, though, is the Accelerate Virtue livery, which...
Brother,
it's not great. It's very blocky.
I hate it.
I don't particularly like the green.
No.
I understand that's the green that goes with the brand and stuff like that.
We've got to be careful, because we have chastised and moaned at the lack of colour on the grid, and we have done.
Yeah.
But going for a 90s bomber jet, or what it was called, shell suit.
Yeah.
It might be one of those that looks better in the flesh.
I certainly hope so.
But at the minute, I think there's too many colours. It clashes. I just don't like it. It's for me, the palette is all wrong. I just don't. It's orangey, pink. It's dark blue, and it's this weird turquoisey. Paint your bathroom.
Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and by all means have an all-out debate about it.
A lot of people love it.
Yes, they do.
But for me, I've never actually really liked any of the Accelerate liveries, if I'm being brutally honest. Okay. It might be the car. Some cars just don't suit.
Yeah, I know what you mean with that. Yep.
And I've not really enjoyed any. I mean, I'm very interested what Restart Racing do with their Hyundais. So I quite liked their liveries last year. I've never loved an Accelerate livery.
Yeah.
And this one's certainly a downgrade on last year for me.
The Laser Tools livery, Jake Hill, championship winning car with a number 1 on the side of it for this season, has also been released.
And it's good.
I actually think it's going to look even better in the flesh. I don't think the pictures do it justice for me.
So this year it's basically bright or dark, dare I say, almost Everton blue.
It's like a dark metallic royal blue.
Yeah. And that's most
for the majority of it.
White trim.
Yeah.
And I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I think it suits the car. As going back to my point before, I think it really suits the car, and I think it's one of those that it's only going to look better on the track.
I'm also going to pop up a couple of shots of the LKQ Euro car parts.
I like this as well. I think this is
because I think this is really smart. Smart. It's a subtle change from the M Sport red, blue, white of BMW, but I really liked it. And I think it'll look really clean on track.
It's kind of like a throwbacky or slightly modern take on. Do you remember when the 2009 they had the sort of the up the wings, over the lights?
Yes.
Union Jack on one, and Prios had the orange and yellow. The way they've done it down the sides of the geometric shapes is almost a little bit of a throwback to that, and I really like it. I think it looks smart. I think that's really good livery as well.
Then we've also got the PMR livery, which we've already mentioned, which has got the MPD. There will be more sponsors scattered over it, we're pretty sure. And there may even be a few little adjustments to the livery before it's finally released.
Yeah, it looks a bit to me like the Lloyd Plater era of the Powermax car. It's fine. Again, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I want to see it in the flesh as well. But I think in the minute the Laser Tools Beamer is the one to beat, and the minute the Toyota picture we've seen just seems to be Gazoo Racing style.
I think there will be 4 cars all in the same livery for Toyota this season. And as you say, you're excited to see the Restart one.
I'm fascinated.
I'm excited to see the Unlimited Motorsport one.
Will Restart do 2 different liveries again? Or
I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either.
No.
But I think will they go for the black, red, and blue, which I think was the better livery. Although I didn't hate Something's one, but I think that was the smarter one. And
I think black, red, and blue is a fairly good shout for that.
And I think that would work on that car.
And I've got no idea for Morgan and Crease. That could be completely random. And I kind of hope it is.
A lot could depend on what sponsor they've bought as their main one, if they've had to. Whether that will change things, or whether or maybe whether they will end up being the same across the board, and they just haven't wrapped these 2 yet because
possible.
Obviously, Crease has only just come over the line, and perhaps they've just, for money reasons or other bits and pieces, not wrapped the other 2 yet. Don't know.
Let's get into the drivers then that we pretty much know now are not going to be on the grid for 2025. As we've already mentioned, we believe all the licenses are now filled, meaning that only a major change and shift and licenses being allowed will change anything.
We're not going to see a team come to the grid this late in the thing. I don't really see any team expanding this late in the day. PMR maybe, but I don't see it personally.
One team that we're trying to get over the line for this season are the Vortex Racing crew.
Who've been lost in the Vortex.
And we believe that Sumpton, with his announcement, was going to be one of those drivers. We know that he's not going to be on the grid for this season. He made a statement on social media about it, but he is fighting to get back for 2026.
Halstead isn't back on the grid either. He's made his announcement that he is looking to still do some racing, whether that be in the background or in the foreground of a team, but it won't be British touring cars. I suspect he was the second
so do I.
Vortex driver. Big crushing heartbreak news for me is that Dan Zelos is not back on the grid. He is racing in Porsche Sprint, but with all respect to that championship, he's too good for that. And I'm absolutely, and it's not because I don't want to see Crease in his seat, but if it wasn't a money decision, I know exactly where I'm going. And I'm disappointed that Zelos is not on the grid. I think he really did do well in his 3 rounds last year, which he stepped in for, and I just. An interesting
announcement to go along with that is the fact that Zelos has now left the Accelerate family as well. He was racing under the Accelerate banner while he was in the Minis with that Davanti Tyres sponsorship. But now with him moving away to Porsches and being in that Sprint Challenge, it may open up more opportunities for him. He may get the opportunity now to come back to the touring car grid next season if an opportunity opens up. One Motorsport, maybe. There are so many options now, I think, going forward for him. Now he's not under that umbrella.
Toyota changed their line every year, maybe.
Exactly.
But, I'm gutted he's not on the grid.
Yeah, so am I.
I really am. And equally gutted as well that Bobby Thompson is not on the grid. He made a similar announcement that he had looked at various options over the off-season but couldn't get anything over the line, which is a shame because he had said that he was in the strongest position he's ever been in. I do wonder with BMW withdrawing some of their funding from WSR, whether that's affected that job. Or he certainly said that he wasn't able to get in a team that he felt was competitive, which is I think noble in some ways, because you don't want to be trundling around making up the numbers for the sake of it. But again, another driver that's too good not to be on the grid. Hopefully he can find his way into the sport, but as every year goes by, as people
it gets more and more difficult.
People like Senna Proctor, who haven't been on the grid for a long time, I think is a driver that did deserve his place on the grid as well. But I think the longer you're away, the harder it is to get back in.
Yeah, obviously Huff came back for 1 season, and we've confirmed now that Toyota have got a full complement. That he will be off and racing historics for the upcoming season at the very least.
Yeah, I've got the feeling he didn't overly enjoy his time back in the touring cars.
What gave you that impression?
Yeah, he didn't really mince his words.
No,
and I think he's one of those drivers that, this isn't a criticism, but if he's not winning or at least able to challenge, he's not interested. Which I understand. He's won in practically every category he's been in, so I understand that. However, I'm disappointed to see a driver of that caliber off the grid. But in fairness to Toyota,
Yeah.
if Shevins' his replacement, it's not bad. It's not a bad replacement.
It's not bad, no.
It's not bad.
And also with Watson leaving the grid as well, we wonder whether he'll go back to GTs or do something a bit different.
I'm a bit surprised because he obviously did really well in his debut year, struggled a bit of Toyota. I'm quite surprised he's off the grid. But obviously, again,
I'm surprised there haven't been any rumours to anyone possibly looking to pick him up either.
No,
it seems like it's a him decision. He's wanted to go off somewhere else. His name wasn't really thrown about for any other seats apart from what we tried to do with BMW.
Yeah, and I suppose that the money you've got to raise, if you're not enjoying it or you think it's not worth it, and for some drivers, I think actually that I can get a better value for money package in GT or in TCR.
It's almost been proven that you can get better value for money in GTs.
And it blows my mind. You can race a Lamborghini around a track for potentially less than a touring car than a Hyundai, for example. But I wish that worked in real life. I could go and just buy a Huracan for the same cheaper than it costs me buying a used i40. But yeah, it's interesting. But I do think that the touring cars is getting, well, we know it's getting more and more expensive, and I think that drivers are looking at even stuff like Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain is getting more and more what you might call esteemed drivers coming to the grid, because again, to drive a Porsche is potentially cheaper than it is to do a season touring cars, which is mind-boggling. And I do think that that's going to have to be something that is looked at going forward. Costing. I mean, we had this before. It's all cyclical. This was obviously why some of the regs were bought in the early 2000s to try and bring costs down, and every manufacturer ran away from the grid and started to come back slowly. Sometimes a big reg change like that is needed, and you take a bit of short-term pain for longer-term gain, because now everybody looks back on the 2000s as the greatest time to, perhaps maybe not, perhaps the 90s are still the pinnacle, but there's certainly lots of enjoy for the 2000s. Maybe that needs to be something that the touring cars looks to do to try and reset the field a little bit. But yeah, those are the drivers that were on the grid last year that won't be here this year. As I say, we will be doing a full preview of teams, cars, drivers in due course.
We'll also have an update of the rules going ahead into this season, and we're also going to have a little fun look at what rules we'd like to implement or change.
Yes, I forgot we'd already recorded that video. That's good. Preparation.
But yeah, if you could let us know your thoughts down in the comments about the drivers that have been announced, what you think this season is going to hold for each and every team, each and every driver, who is going to be your champion going forward at the end of the 2025 season, and which drivers are we going to need to be looking out for that may have flown underneath the radar.
And don't forget, we're on Facebook, Instagram for regular news updates, and TikTok for quizzes, countdowns, behind the scenes, general messing about, all the kind of stuff that is a little bit more lighthearted than anywhere else. And you did a post this week, which is...
I did, yes.
It's proof that it's there, there's stuff drafted.
Less than 30 days to go until the opening round at Brands at Donington, and we will be at Media Day for that as well. We hope to see you there, and until the next one, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
And if you've got this far, then there is really no excuse not to like, subscribe, or leave a review. See you next time.